how much government influence was there? Um, there's this whole sort of move to create a disinformation ministry, which was insane. And like George Orwell is turning in his grave. Did you hear such things? Um, but like what happened with, with that, I think there was a public outcry about a disinformation
Yeah, Jack
ministry.
Posobiec started that one. He basically stopped it in its tracks because before that, nobody knew that this was even a thing, right? And he exposed it, and suddenly everybody was talking about it, and they had to shut it down because it was very Orwellian. It was like they used 1984 as a instruction manual.
Exactly, totally. It's exactly 1984 is George Orwell's 1984 is supposed to be a warning, not an instruction manual.
Yep.
Guys, come on.
And that's what they seem to be doing. They take every single, dystopian fiction, whether it's Deus Ex, I love that game, and they're like, yeah, this world looks awesome. Let's oppress the hell out of people. It's like, no, let's not do that.
Exactly, totally.
Hey, Elon, speaking of progress, you've accomplished so much. You started the first successful American car company in 100 years. You brought payments to the internet. There's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs and small business owners that look at what you do and sort of try to, follow that example and see how can they create some of that progress too. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about the layoffs because it appeared to me with the $4 million loss per day and just doing the math on the $1 billion of interest expense that $3 million of that may have been interest expense added. And I myself, running a small business, have been in a situation where the business was going to go under in a number of months if expenses weren't cut. And what we found is communicating to employees, giving them time to process, getting their feedback, and then creating a shared vision to evolve the product, to evolve the company to a greater future was really successful. And it appears here that the typical like leverage buyout KKR approach was basically applied from a financial standpoint. For a small business owner, like, is that approach wrong? Like, did you think about taking that approach? Was that ever under consideration?
I apologize. The audio is not perfect, so I'm not fully hearing the questions. But with respect to Twitter, uh, the company basically tripled headcount in about 2 years, a little over 2 years, but revenue is flat to declining. So that there's just no way that is going to be a healthy situation. So the first order of business with Twitter was like, okay, we got to make sure Twitter doesn't die, that doesn't go bankrupt, um, and there is quite a lot of debt on this deal, 12.5 billion of debt, and the Fed is being extremely unwise in its very giant rate increases. Uh, I think these will go down as some of the most foolish Fed decisions ever. Um, but anyway, so the debt's got to be serviced, um, and
But
this is in the
KKR's
face
been
of like
loading up
declining
businesses like that
advertising.
for years. How's this
Sorry,
different?
sorry.
KKR and other private equity companies that do anything from a hostile takeover, or any sort of takeover where they bid over the current price, using leverage, using debt. I've been following that for years, and it always results in massive layoffs. And so, as somebody who's
By the
one
way,
of the
I
most
don't think
creative
anybody cares
visionaries.
about that. I don't think that matters right
That's
now.
what I was gonna say. And I was gonna say, as long as they
Let's
keep
just go.
moving the bar
Let's
and
just get.
changing the
Let's just get.
definition of a recession, we are where we
Yeah.
are, right? With the
Let's
Fed.
just get back on topic here. I mean, we have Elon. We don't need to talk about his investments and things like that. Elon, we should send a shout out to the Twitter Spaces team because you're about to break the all-time record with this space. We're almost at 100,000 listeners
Wow.
right now.
Yes, we are, and it's holding.
Talking
Right.
about spaces, what's the
The Twitter
strategy
Spaces
moving
team
forward?
is awesome. I have to tell you that there are really some amazing people at Twitter, um, and there's actually some amazing people who actually left Twitter in recent years, and I hope they come back, because I think there's a potential to just build some amazing things here. So I don't want to just. I want to be exactly complimentary of some of the great work that is being done on Twitter. So, it's sort of, just sort of like, I mean, there's a lot to criticize about Twitter and say like, okay, Twitter is wasting money in a lot of in really some next level ways, but also some very talented people who really care about the truth of Twitter. And I'm doing my best to elevate their capabilities and give them all the resources they need. I'm very excited about Community Notes. This feature, Keith Coleman's running it, and there's like some really first-rate engineers that are writing the code on that product that is, I think, going to be very powerful for actually fighting disinformation, not
Can we
pretending to
actually
fight
see that if we're
disinformation.
not enrolled in Community Notes, right? Like right now, the rest of the world isn't, right? It's just the United States and I think Canada, to my knowledge. But can you at least make it visible to other people? So even if we're not able to contribute, we can at least view it, because I feel kind of left out. I'm in Malaysia, so it's kind of hard to see it.
Yeah, actually, I asked that. I sent a note to Keith Coleman saying like, "Hey, shouldn't we just at least make this visible everywhere?" And then he said we needed to talk in person about that, but I'm not sure what.
Hey Elon, we did want to say on the Twitter Spaces during the blowout of SBF and FTX and all the other companies in crypto, there's been massive financial losses for many people, obviously. But Twitter Spaces actually became the place that drove the community together, and we've been sharing lots of stories. There were people that were suicidal because of the financial loss, and because of the community in Twitter Spaces, it prevented them taking their life. There's lots and
Yeah,
lots of
and
stories.
to add to it as well, Elon. Last time, if you remember when you joined the space about Sam, that space ended up going for 16 hours, and for 3-4 days, the media was in our space, getting the news from the space for 4 days, 5 days straight, and then writing stories on it day after day. And I think Simon was there, Kim was there, so it was I think it's the first time it happens to that extent on Twitter Spaces, and we're probably doing it again today.
Yeah, and this type of citizen journalism that you are enabling is so powerful, because we are the news now. If people want to learn the truth, they go to Twitter and join these spaces. It's like real time with experts. It's fantastic. And then we have people like you joining in and sharing their opinions and their thoughts. What is more powerful than that? The traditional media can pack and it's game over for them.
Elon, would you ever consider holding a space for earnings for Tesla right here live on Twitter?
Oh man, I have to say, Tesla being a public company, it just creates such a gigantic attack surface for legal firms in the U.S., especially these class action firms. Man.
Yeah, that seems like a bad idea.
I've been to spaces. I've been to spaces that other CEOs held, and they did their earnings live right on Twitter, and I thought it was quite amazing.
Okay, well, yeah, sure. I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
You've made Elon. You've just made two promises. You've made two promises, man. Now you've made this one, and you've made one to Kim about the. You made a promise to Kim about the poll, and now you made a promise to hold the Tesla meeting here on Spaces. So just I'll remind you afterwards about it as well.
I will.
Elon, I've been getting a lot of questions.
I will do those things.
Yeah. So I've been getting a lot of questions from people who are just bombarding me just to ask you, right? Because, we're in the space. They're asking, what are you going to do about the shadow banning situation? Because, I'm personally search banned. I'm not shadow banned, but I'm search banned. And I'm not sure what's even up with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've only been on the job like a month, guys. So there's definitely, I've got a long list of things to do. But there needs to be a general, we need to say, like, your account should actually just tell you are search banned or you are deboosted or whatever it is, and why, and what the process is for fixing that. Now, this week I should tell you that we were probably a little overzealous, and that's, if anything, that's my fault, because I'm just trying to get rid of the damn scams and spam and bots and stuff. And so in trying to stamp out or reduce the bot spam scam stuff, there will be some false positives. So that's just this week, but be taking. I know it's like I said, it's going to be an iterative journey towards towards truth and towards a healthier system. So
you just got to be patient. I think, right?
At any given point, it will be broken, but it will be moving as quickly as possible towards a good place. And I encourage people to, you know, complain about it and whatnot, but it will move iteratively towards a good place. That's the goal. And I generally move pretty fast. So on the net, you know, the vector sum of those decisions over time should be.
I'm losing him.
Yeah. By the way, Kim, check my DMs. Kim, check my DMs. Kim, check my DMs because I'm having glitches, so I might need your help with a few things.
He's back.
Elon, Elon, you're back. Elon.
Yep.
He's here.
Oh, you're back. Another question. I think you made a reference once to WeChat. I think that was a while ago, and I don't recall it correctly. Does that reference still stand today? Is that a potential vision for Twitter?
Yeah, I was just using WeChat as an example. It's not like we would copy WeChat exactly, but it's just WeChat has a lot of functionality that Twitter should have. Like it's kind of a no-brainer for Twitter to have payments, both fiat currency and crypto, and to make that easy and simple for people to use. As talked about earlier, adding the ability to post long-form written content and video content, and to be able to monetize that easily.
Nice to have a playlist, you know, like YouTube does.
Yeah, but my focus in the first month and also will be the case in December is just making sure that Twitter is operating efficiently as a company, that it is not wasting money, because it faces challenges on the revenue front, from with an overdependence on advertising that is not targeted, like brand advertising, and in a market where advertising revenue in general is dropping, and then also when you start questioning the status quo, then various pressure groups start pressuring advertisers to not advertise with you. So that's another challenge on the revenue front. And then you got the debt, and the debt now has a very high interest rate. So it's like these are a lot of challenges simultaneously that I think we'll solve these challenges, but these are a lot of things to solve. So the first order of business is just get Twitter healthy. Make sure its expenditures are reasonable. That Twitter's like primarily a software company. There are obviously design elements, but it's primarily software and servers. And so, like, is the software team organized well? Those that are committing good code, and just making the engine of engineering work at Twitter. Because if you look at, say, like, what is Twitter's technology evolution over time, excluding acquisitions, it's been very low. The technology of Twitter has been very slow. And
10 years for an edit button.
Yeah, exactly. The edit button. Look, I mean, if it takes a year to do an edit button and the edit button still doesn't work properly, then you can have a million good ideas, but they're irrelevant because you can't implement them.
So Elon, I've got a quick question for you, my friend. I was removed from the space.
Hey, I want to test my mic. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Maybe can you hear me?
Alex, we can hear you.
Yeah,
go ahead. I'll let Alex ask the first question.
Okay. Does Alex want to go, and then I can go?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So my question was, if the Twitter files, are those also going to include other content other than what you provide at the top? So basically all pages.
Yeah. No,
Alex, Mario, we can't hear you.
This is a bit of an audio shit show. Let's try and get this back on the road. I unmuted everyone. I muted everyone. I'm going to unmute those who are not talking. Just mute yourself, please.
I would like to ask Elon a quick question.
Okay, trying this again.
I think Alex just did, and he was ready to respond. He just now would have to unmute himself to respond to Alex.
Yeah, I was just wondering if all accounts that were requested to have things taken down by the DNC and by the Biden campaign, even ones that have nothing to do with the Hunter Biden laptop, if they will also be released.
Elon, you're muted.
You gotta unmute. Yeah, you gotta unmute.
Yep, he's got to unmute.
Sorry. Yes. The intent is to release all the files. So there's not like anything that's hidden or anything.
I can't hear anybody.
He dropped out. Is my mic good, Kim, by the way? Is it my mic okay?
We can hear
you just sound like you are in.
Oh, he's back.
Oh, okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Elon.
Yeah. So you cut out. Yeah, you cut out for a second while you were answering Alex.
I mean, I think this is, this is like whatever Stasi files or, Truth and Reconciliation, like Nelson Mandela would say. It's if you want reconciliation, there must be truth. So, that's the intent here. Intent here is to just make it clear what was happening, and provide transparency about the past, and in doing so, to build trust about the future.
Awesome. So do you think that Twitter could also have an automatic notification if anyone was, say, if their account was requested content taken down? Do you think there could be something like that implemented?
Yeah, like the VPN sites actually offer that.
Yeah, I mean, you mean if if a government has a takedown request or something like that?
Yeah.
So,
if a government
example,
says, "Hey, we want you censored," I mean, I think
for example,
even Germany would let you know, right? So why doesn't America? Yeah.
Or with James Woods, for example, how his content was, they requested his content be removed. Say if that happened from the Biden campaign.
I think both past and future requests should be made public. And sunshine is a great disinfectant, and so if if they request content takedowns that are embarrassing, then they'll be less likely to request those content takedowns. At the end of the day, Twitter doesn't have a choice but to abide by the laws of the U.S. and whatever countries it's operating in. Otherwise, you get arrested. But we shouldn't do more than that. It should be abide by the laws because you have to. If there may be some potential to say well, if we disagree with the law, maybe we can lobby to have a law changed or something like that. But
so Elon, I want to ask you on this point. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but I'm saying the overarching goal here is that, on balance, that Twitter be a force for good for the future of civilization, and for the expansion of consciousness.
So to that point, I want to ask you then, because I'm speaking from the European lens. What do you think about the EU's proposals over potential restrictions to the use of Twitter?
We're losing you a little bit.
Or equally, I know you had a little bit of a, shall we say, fanfare with Alex Vindman earlier this week. I was wondering if you would be interested in a space with you and him, since I know him from the week ago. We had a chat. I invite you to, to a debate. If you'd be interested.
Don't waste your time with the intelligence community, man.
Seriously, yeah.
I'm teasing. But I am curious about your thoughts on the European Union perspective.
Well, actually, there's a lot of the EU rules call for things that I agree with, which is transparency and sort of an ability for users to appeal and have a clear process. So I think in terms of the Digital Services Act, I think it's mostly good. I think we have to watch the implementation of it and make sure the implementation is not bad for the people of Europe, but the actual I think most of what is in there I agree with, because it's transparency and accountability. It seems quite sensible. We just need to make sure that is not warped in a bad direction. But generally, I agree with it, or at least what I know of it today.
I have a personal question for you, Elon.
Is that we don't allow governments to define what misinformation or disinformation is, right? I mean, that is probably the most dangerous development, to give governments that kind of power that they become the deciders of what's truth and what is not.
Yeah, no, that is a big deal. I agree. That goes to the heart of the situation, is that you don't want to have governments, and especially it may not even be sort of it may not be an elected official, maybe someone who's potentially a mid-level executive in a ministry who's deciding this, and who people don't even know exists and was never elected, despite being in a democratic country.
So what about the China protests? What role do you think that Twitter can have in helping to support Iran, Ukraine, China, and other countries that are facing, technological oppression and limitation in their access to freedom of speech?
Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, we'll do whatever is possible within the bounds of the law. So,
I have a kind of a personal question, and I've been curious. Was there a breaking point that made you decide to want to buy Twitter?
Man, that's a good question.
Thank you.
I was hoping you would say the child exploitation that you've done more to get rid of in the past month than they did in the past 10 years on Twitter. And I wanted to thank you for that. And I'm sorry that the media has completely snubbed you on mentioning the fact that you guys have gone above and beyond to make that happen. And Eliza Blue, thank you for your work and efforts there.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank Eliza Blue. I would like to thank Andrea as well. We've actually had this is actually like a really good case of crowdsourcing of having people on Twitter actually help solve the child exploitation stuff. It is true. Yes, Twitter's done more to stop child exploitation in the last month than probably the last 10 years. That's insane. It kind of blows my mind, frankly. And we're going to keep doing it, and it's always going to be number one. I mean, it's like kids can't defend themselves, so we must defend them as adults. So, yeah. Back to the question by Ian.
Yeah. Mario, we can't hear you.
Mario, you sound like a mosquito now.
Sounds like he's in the toilet, to be honest.
Elon, do you still have plans to drop the W? Everyone is asking.
I mean, technically the poll did come out positive on that. So
the people have spoken.
No. No, the people have not spoken. But more to my question, I don't think you answered that. I want to know, what was the breaking point? I think a lot of people want to know this one. What was the breaking point that made you want to buy Twitter?
Well, first of all, I suppose if Twitter had been, if I'd been able to buy Twitter sooner, then I might have actually done that. But there had to be a situation where my liquidity was enough and Twitter's value was whether there was essentially a closing price, like would I actually have that wasn't the case until recently. But I guess it just felt like it really had been building for some time. So I wouldn't say it wasn't like a step change suddenly. This is a one thing. It's not like, oh, the Babylon Bee got banned, that's why I bought Twitter. That would be crazy. It's more that there just seemed to be like this more and more groupthink amongst the media, more and more sort of towing the line amongst digital social media companies, and basically just we're traveling the path more and more of suppression of free speech, and this was just getting me concerned. It's like the trends were just very, very bad. So unless something was done to reverse this trend against free speech, then I felt, well, maybe that at some point everything will just get cut off, and unless you're in agreement with whatever the groupthink is, then you're just going to be ostracized, or your voice will be shut off. So like I said, it wasn't any one thing. It was just like, okay, I think I can't exactly say why, because it's like one of those things where it's like it's just that my biological neural nets said it is important to buy Twitter, and just like with a digital neural net, you can't really exactly explain why the neural net is able to understand an image or text, or that just say that the collective result of the neural net says that this is an important action, or this is the right action, and my biological neural nets concluded that it was important to buy Twitter, and that if Twitter was not bought and steered in a good direction, that it would be a danger for the future of civilization, and so that's why I bought it.
That's brilliant.
Elon, you mentioned the biological neural net and the digital neural net. When is Neuralink going to be ready to copy our consciousness into a computer?
And please, can I sign
forever?
up? Where can I sign up for it? Because I would love to have my brain augmented. It's like cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly. We're just going full cyberpunk at this point.
Yep.
Deus Ex.
Elon, I
Ghost
want
in
to
the
pose
Shell.
the other side to that. I'm sure you're familiar with Doctor Who, right? And the Cybermen, and this idea of a centralized system by which you can influence people's thoughts. Is that not a consideration that you have on your radar? If you get what I'm coming from.
Well, I mean, frankly, on the Neuralink front, if I look at the pace at which artificial intelligence is improving versus the pace at which Neuralink is progressing, artificial intelligence is moving much faster than Neuralink is moving, because as soon as anything gets done with humans, it gets very slow because of the danger to humans. So for the next few years, Neuralink is really just focused on restoring movement to people that have a broken neck or spine, and restoring vision. So it's restoring movement and vision. It's not, uploading memories or controlling thoughts or anything like that. It's pretty basic stuff. It's like at the early days of computers,
It's basic, but it's life-changing, though, right? I mean, being able to see, if you're born blind, that is a gift that I don't think anyone would pass up. That would be amazing.
Yeah, and that's very doable. So what I'm saying about Neuralink is that you'll be able to see anything that Neuralink's doing. You'll be able to see coming from very far off, because you've got to go through the whole FDA device approval process. That takes ages. you've got to evaluate the safety in humans, and that takes a long time. So it basically is very slow compared to the development of digital superintelligence, which is very fast. Now, I do think, and I've said this for a long time, that we ought to be more cautious in the development of digital superintelligence because this represents a danger to the public. And just as we have other regulatory agencies that oversee dangers to the public, like the FDA or the FAA, or any one of a number of FCC, there's you can't just have companies just going hog wild on developing digital superintelligence with no oversight.
Do you potentially see this happening in a country where there are no oversights? Where the governments allow the scientists to go hog wild, as you said?
Well, look, there's the things we can control and the things we can't control, and I think there should be some kind of oversight in North America and Europe, which is where a lot of the AI innovation is happening. There should be some kind of oversight beyond nothing, which is currently the case. So,
how far do you think we are from general artificial intelligence? Like, what is your time frame, you think, until we have the big deal?
I mean, I think it's happening very fast. You have said like AGI is defined by where digital superintelligence is smarter than the smartest human. What is your definition of AGI?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, once AI is able to basically program itself and understands how to advance itself, that would be the level where we need to start to worry, right?
Yeah.
Well, to add to that, Elon, I mean, what about this? Last year after the pandemic, we had the Great Resignation. And now there's the concern about the replacement of traditional labor jobs with, AI and machine technology. I think it was you. I saw the video and the capacity for it to control things with its mind. Is that not a concern about the potential impact it has on, very menial jobs and the, those people who don't have necessarily the skills or ability to retrain that quickly? Just, how can we plan in advance to minimize the consequences of that?
Sorry, the audio is like not good right now. So,
oh, no worries.
Ian,
I'm coming through fine.
And maybe lead the conversation, Ian, because you can hear you fine, Ian.
Hey,
yeah, we can't hear you, Mario.
Maybe we can have another space sometime in the future to talk about AI, because I think that is one of the big topics, where a lot of people don't really realize how big the risk of AI is, and what you are always asking for is, more regulation, better rules in order to prevent the worst case scenario of, an AGI taking over and basically wiping out humanity.
Look at artists and their jobs. I mean, Midjourney has basically replaced graphic artists for book covers. You don't need a book artist anymore. You can just do it with AI.
Not to change the subject back to the Twitter files, but Kim, I just want to ask Elon a quick question about Section 230. Are you concerned about that now, and what the government could potentially do to Section 230 as a result of the flattening that you're creating at Twitter and all the truth that you're pushing out and the objectivity?
Well, I think it is, and I did say this on Twitter publicly. It is good that we actually that the House will be Republican. It's generally not a good idea if in the U.S. if the House, Senate, and executive branch are all of one party, then you have sort of situation. So it's good to have at least one of those branches be the other party, because then they will check the worst excesses of both parties. So I think I think it's good that the House will be Republican, and at least and people interpreted that as like, oh, I must be some huge Republican or something. It's like, no, I'm a huge moderate. Actually, is what I am. It's just like I wish people were rigorously moderate, but like by its nature, being moderate does not lend itself. You cannot be. It's like be fanatically moderate, but fanaticism and
Be a
moderation
radical
don't go
centrist, as
together.
I think some YouTubers like to say, right? Be a radical centrist.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
pragmatic
Radical
idealist.
centrist. So it's just like you want to have the government pass laws that are in the best interest of the people, not that are in the interest of a small segment of the people. So that's why I think if you have a mixture of parties in control, then they will pass only things that sort of are the intersection of sets of what both parties agree on, which is more likely to be in the interest of the people. So I think I guess I feel pretty okay about that Section 230 stuff. Yeah.
Elon,
Can you just quickly, guys? Can you hear me now or no?
We got
Yeah,
you.
I hear you.
Yeah, I've got great speakers that just came up because now it's not glitching for me anymore. So I've just welcomed Clayton, Patrick, Bet David is on stage as well, and there's more speakers about to come up that all of you would know. Now my space is working. So guys, feel free to jump in and ask Elon any
hey,
questions.
thank you so
If
much.
you want to retry the co-host thing too, Mario.
I
Sorry
will
about
now.
that,
I will
Clay.
now. Yeah, I will
Okay.
now. I will now. Go ahead, Clay, and then Patrick. Go ahead, Clay.
Hey, thanks, Elon. This is Clayton from Redacted. One of the stories we've been covering on our show over the past couple of months is Dr. Shiva's lawsuit. He was banned from Twitter running for the Senate from Massachusetts. And one of the things in his lawsuit that was uncovered was the back end government portal to both Facebook and Twitter, the Trusted Twitter Partnership. And I know on Twitter's blog that Trusted Twitter Partnership between Twitter and someone with a government email address can reach out to Twitter and basically have accounts banned, taken down. Is that portal, is that Trusted Partnership still available to the government? And given what you've released in the Twitter files, does it make sense for that to still be there?
I got to dig into this trusted partnership thing. Obviously that has like some Big Brother vibes. Twitter will adhere to the law, but it will not do. It's not going to go beyond the law. And if there are laws that don't seem to be the interest of the people, then Twitter will push to change the laws to be in the interest of the people. But I'll dig into this trusted partnership thing, find out what's going on. Yeah.
By the way, Clayton, I do watch Redacted, and I love you and your wife. You're doing an amazing job, so keep it going.
Eric, Sebastian, did you have a question?
Yeah, yes,
guys? I'm not sure if your mic will
I
work.
do, Elon, and
Go ahead, Eric.
it may be a follow-up to the prior question. Elon, in the Twitter, the Twitter files, the things that you found, did you find any relationship between Facebook and any other TikTok, whomever, with regards to what could be considered, the collusion with the certain political parties? Was it, in other words, was there any collusion among other social media groups with Twitter?
I've not directly seen that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I've not seen it yet. In fact, in terms of the Twitter files, Matt TV's read way more than I have, like by a ton. Because my priority has been just getting Twitter healthy and fixing Twitter engineering so that we can actually, release features at a high rate. So, that's been my priority on the Twitter front. Is we've got to get Twitter to be in a financially healthy place, fix the engine of engineering, so we can add the features and capabilities that'll make it much better and improve transparency and trust and all that. So actually, I don't most of the stuff. I've read hardly any of the Twitter files. Matt Taibbi has, and then Barry Weiss is also getting access to it, so she'll read it too.
Have you been in contact with any of the other social platforms, Meta, Google, etc., since the release of the files? Has there been any pushback, any concerns, anything at all, or it's been pretty quiet?
They haven't reached out to me, so I'm not aware of any outreach from them. So I guess, look, if I think if it turns out there's like stuff that the public should know about, then we'll put it out there. I told Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss, hey, listen, whatever you see, if you think the public should know about it, you just post it.
With regards to the dissemination of information, so right now it's just Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss. Do you have any plans to maybe give access to more journalists, like say Ryan Saavedra of Daily Wire, Jack Posobiec? He's done lots of coverage on this stuff even previously, so I'm sure they'd love to know.
Yeah, I think. Maybe at some point we should just put it all out there, So, I think in the beginning it's good to have some coherence, so it's not just a million stories all at once.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's a drip feed at first, and then later on it's going to be a flood, right? Because otherwise it's just too many stories, too much all at once, and then people can't really focus on anything. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, you just get drowned out in the flood of things. But I think yep. once we think the stories have the critical stories have been told, then I think probably the right move is to just provide a data dump and then people can go through it and see what was missed.
Are you surprised at all about the blowback against Matt Taibbi over the past 24 hours? I mean, a number of liberal news organizations, a lot of liberal news reporters came out and really slammed Matt Taibbi, which really was really shocking. What was your response to that?
Well, I think those people should be looking in the mirror and wondering why they were deceptive. Why did they deceive the American public? And instead of trying to redirect blame to Matt Taibbi, they seem to be accepting some responsibility themselves for not being truthful to the American public.
Elon, it's Mike Cohen here. Congratulations on, of course, the acquisition of Twitter. But my question to you is, how are you going to go about combating the issue of bot farms who create so much misinformation and hate on your platform?
If the last thing I do, I will defeat the damn bots and trolls.
Maybe they need like a mind virus that purges them, just makes them self-destruct.
Yeah, I mean, it's war, and we're gonna win that war, big time.
Yeah, because
I'm confident you will.
Because the extent of the hatred that these bots cause is astronomical.
I agree.
And it's really terrible. But thank you for your commitment to that.
Absolutely.
Can I jump in and ask a question here, Michael?
Just real quick. I wanted to say something about the bots. So there are, of course, commercial bots, right? People trying to do spam, but the more dangerous bots are those that are trying to interfere in discourse and try to manipulate the conversation. And those are primarily run by governments, right? They're run by the intelligence community in different countries. They're trying to manipulate the way people are talking, for example, about Ukraine. I think one of the more famous examples here are these so-called NAFO bots that are going out and shooting everyone down.
Real people.
Yeah, often where they're mixing it, right? So the intelligence community does it in that way. They have real people, then they have bots that are fully automated, and then they even let their intelligence community employees work with Twitter profiles to chime in as well. But all with one goal, which is to manipulate the public discourse towards their goals. And I think you experienced that yourself when you spoke out for peace in Ukraine. You were attacked by these same bots.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, um, like I said, I've been in the job a month. I'm very good at software. I wrote software for 20 years, and I was very good back in the day at defeating the scammers. And I mean, they were just like they were just the bad actors had free reign in the system before. They will not have that in the future. I look forward to that battle, and we will expose those who are acting to manipulate public opinion and shine a bright light on it. So,
Fantastic.
Hey, Kim,
That's a
if I
good
could just
answer.
ask a quick question on that same topic, because there was a point at which I was told by someone who apparently had access to this Discord server for these NATO or NAFO trolls that I was among their top targets, or even the number one target for a while. So I'm just sort of a personal curiosity. By the way, this is Michael Tracy, Elon. And and so, Elon, I'm just curious if you were able to detect or gauge any inauthentic activity on Twitter specifically related to this sort of pro-Ukraine faction, or was there a particular sort of system that kind of connects those actors that you were able to discern since you've taken the helm?
well, the tools that Twitter currently has to detect large-scale manipulation are quite weak and need to be strengthened considerably. That's why. But in order for them to be strengthened, we must, like I said, build the engine of engineering, and to be able to sort of see what's going on in the system. I mean, over and over again, it's been, it's like Twitter doesn't know what's going on in Twitter. That's actually the issue. So we need to build the tools that can analyze what's going on and see where is there evidence of large-scale manipulation, and in order to highlight it. And I think even if it's not shut down, if it is simply highlighted and said, wait a second, these accounts are all acting in concert, they're acting in a way that is faster than a human could possibly coordinate. This appears to be a linked, 100,000 bots linked that are all acting in concert, and just say, and expose them essentially. But those software tools need to be written, and they have not yet been written. So they will be.
It's
Oh,
coming.
And on a similar,
I have written those tools, so I can give them to you.
Right, Elon, wouldn't it be easier if you were able to use some form of two-part authentication in order to ensure that the individual...
You've dropped out, Ian. You've dropped out, Michael. Oh, you're back. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Elon, would it not be easier to just use some form of two-part authentication to ensure that the individual is who they say they are?
Yes. Now that, so this is part of what's the game plan with the sort of blue verified thing, is that right now it is there are problems on many levels. It's too cheap to have a bot. So and even a troll, like it's not just that somebody's operating a bunch of 10,000 instances of Twitter accounts, in a bank of PCs. It's like you can have a warehouse with, and there are many parts of the world, like warehouse where there's just banks of phones. So they actually are operated by people. The challenge right now. So the challenge is actually, you have to make it more expensive to have bots and trolls. it can be like
It's like a guy sitting in front of 8 phones, right? That's just how they operate.
exactly. It's like
The farms are guys sitting in front of 8 phones.
like there's like
Well, unfortunately, the disinformation budget for the CIA for these NAFO bots is over $100 million. I mean, even if you throw $8 per month per account in front of them, it's not. Is that really going to stop them?
not the $8. The if it was purely a question, then I think they could overcome a budget challenge, but also then having to have a huge number of phones and a huge number of credit or debit cards, is that these all amplify the difficulty, and then having if you want to do it such that there's that you can't find any connection between 100,000 phones and 100,000 credit cards and 100,000 authenticated phone numbers, that's very difficult to do. Just the logistical difficulty of that is extremely high. So it's more like you need to process some amount of money through the payment system in order to piggyback off the authentication of the payment system. So $8 is kind of like a random number, obviously. But there's another thing that has to be accomplished simultaneously, which is that Twitter cannot be like so heavily dependent on advertisers. So this is an attempt to kill two birds with one stone, which is build a source of revenue that is not advertiser dependent, so the advertisers do not have too much sway over what happens on Twitter, and also use the payment system as an additional means of identifying and stopping large-scale manipulation of the system.
And just to add on to that, when you have a lot of users
just
signing up,
just 1 second.
the advertisers are going to realize that these are real people, right? They're all verified individuals. So that will make them want to advertise on the site. So it's win-win-win, right?
Yeah.
Let's just.
Hey Kim, can I ask a quick follow-up to my question? Would you mind, Elon? I'm just.
Okay, I have to just stop this for a second because everyone is talking over each other. Elon just made a really important point, which is that he has more freedom to do what is good for his users if he is less dependent on advertisers. So there's a large group of people here. I think everyone who appreciates what Elon is doing for us right now in this fight for freedom of speech should support him. And the best way you can support him is to become a subscriber at Twitter. You're using this great service all the time. If you want him to have more power and more freedom to achieve these goals for us, well, make that $8 a month investment. I think it's really worth it.
The price of a lot.
Did Elon already say when he plans to reinstate the verification, the $8 verification process?
Yeah,
Elon, you're muted.
Elon, you're
just in
muted. I was
case.
going to tell you because Kim muted everyone.
Sorry, it seems to sometimes mute me, I guess. Yeah, so I think we're probably about a week away. Maybe basically this coming week we should be able to restart the verification process.
Will it be global or is it just the US still?
Actually, I'm going to discuss that with the team. So this time for verification, we're taking some additional steps where one has to be phone verified with a known good carrier, a known good phone carrier, and we're also will offer people the opportunity, if they want, to do ID verification, kind of like what Airbnb does, similar thing, and they do that all around the world. And then you'll be able to look at an account and say, this account is payment verified, it is verified, it is ID verified, optionally, and also to establish organizational affiliation. Do you actually have affiliation with this organization? And providing organizations with the ability to define to state which set of users are affiliated with that organization. So, like, are you actually a professor at Stanford, or are you actually, for example, a reporter at the New York Times or whatever, or an employee of PepsiCo or whatever it is? So just generally to have granularity and nuance to what verified means, as opposed to the sort of like grab bag of nonsense, which has been the past blue verified situation, where you could have been an intern at Mashable 10 years ago, and now you've got blue verified, and it's kind of crazy. And then they were also just being traded constantly. You could just buy a verified badge, so you can't actually tell if something is blue verified for Legacy Blue. You can't tell if that is a legitimate situation, a crypto scam, whether they're actually you don't know, because there's no granularity to it. And there's
a way to buy them off of Google right now. Like, you can literally Google verified accounts, and they sell them for like $200, $500 or something, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's not like blue It's not like you have to go to the, in quotes, dark web to buy blue verified. You can literally Google search it and it's on page 1 of the Google search results if you want to buy a Legacy Blue verified. So it's just basically Legacy Blue verified is a corrupt garbage file. And so we need to move forward with something that gives granularity and detail and nuance about the nature of the verification, and so that you can actually trust what you see.
Elon, you said some really admirable things about freedom of speech and your commitment to it and its role in the future of humanity. You didn't answer the question about supporting protesters in China and Iran. Is there freedom of speech for Chinese people important?
It's already
for the future
banned
of humanity?
in China. Just so you know, like, Twitter is inaccessible in China. You need a VPN, so it's kind of a pointless question.
So you don't think making it accessible for Chinese or Iranian
It doesn't
protesters?
matter.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not Elon. It's not Elon blocking it. Tommy, you had a question, Tommy?
That was Tommy.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Tommy.
That was him, yeah, he was wrong.
Can you address the question of the freedom of speech at Sebastian Gorka here? Because a lot of people are confused that it's a First Amendment issue, what was dumped by Matt Taibbi. The First Amendment concerns government suppression. So anything that happened before January the 20th isn't First Amendment unless it was the Biden administration afterwards. So for those who think that, we've got the smoking gun and they don't need to wait for anything else, could you address that issue, Mr. Moss?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, actually, there are issues if there's election interference before the government, because that is, I think, an issue. It's certainly Twitter. It would appear that Twitter falsely claimed that there was not election interference, but it would.
Right, but that has to do with in-kind contributions. That's a very different kind of thing, and it is criminal. But can you tell us if there will be more smoking guns coming?
Yeah, I think there will be more smoking guns, because the obvious next question is, well, what happened after the election?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably the right thing for episode 2, is what happened after the election.
And how long do we have to wait for episode 2?
I don't know. I'll check with Matt.
Elon, can I ask a quick
go ahead. Yeah, Will, just quickly. Will, go ahead, Will.
Thank you. Elon, apologies if you addressed this earlier. I appreciate how long you've been on this call. What subjects outside of Hunter Biden, by the way, this is Will Kane from Fox News, what subjects outside of Hunter Biden were subject to the most government-induced censorship?
As I said, you may not have heard my earlier comment, but I don't actually, like I said, I've been working on getting Twitter to be healthy and fixing the engine of engineering. I've not been sort of poring over the Twitter files personally. That's sort of been, Matt Taibbi is doing that, and Barry Weiss is going to do it now as well. So anything I say would be somewhat of a, guesswork, really. But so I don't know. There's obviously a lot of questions around Jan 6th. There's questions around COVID. There's a lot of questions, but I think the important thing is that we just get bring daylight to all of these things. And so anything that Twitter has done And sometimes things, a lot of times Twitter's done things that were just not. It wasn't malicious. It was just foolish. So the things that
Yeah,
are
like the nuking people for NPCs, right? For posting NPC memes, thousands of people were banned.
Yeah, exactly.
From just a quick question, with the companies that stopped advertising on Twitter, which I think most of us agree is just not right, has there been any progress since? Have you been in discussions with them? And what are some other strategies to bring in revenue so we depend less on advertisers?
You can hear this. This is Eric Bowling again. I was wondering if you have any knowledge or you can have any proof that there's some indication that a lot of people on the right side of the political aisle lost a ton of followers. I would say from 2015, 2016, all the way through the, towards the end of 2021. I'll give you anecdotally myself. I lost 80,000 or so, and not until this is literal. Not until you purchased Twitter did I start gaining followers again in a fairly robust manner. Is there any proof of that? Do you have any evidence of that being sort of a plan or a strategy on Twitter's part?
Again, like I said, I have not read the Twitter file, so it's difficult for me to say that. Except, so my understanding is limited, and that's why I would leave it to Matt Taibbi and Bari Weiss and ultimately others. But if I say what is my best guess is that there was a very different standard applied to Republican candidates in the U.S. versus Democrat candidates. So there appears, and I emphasize appears, I'm not saying this is definitely the case, there appears to have been a double standard where Democrats were not censored and left causes were not censored, but right causes and Republicans were. And I think this is frankly obvious to anyone who uses Twitter without any expose of Twitter files. It was not even-handed, and it's frankly the behavior that is to be expected from an organization that is based in San Francisco, which is far left. So from their standpoint, it wouldn't seem like that they're being unfair. From their standpoint, it's simply how they see the world. I think Matt posted like political contributions of Twitter being over 99% Democrat. So, well, what kind of viewpoint would you expect people to have then? It's the behavior you'd expect from a company that is essentially a distillation of San Francisco politics.
And I hope that
by the way, just really quick. By the way, I want to make a suggestion. I want to make a suggestion real quick. Elon, when you are speaking, we can hear you really well. When you are listening, the background noise from your jet is interfering a little.
Okay, sure.
Can you just mute yourself when you are not speaking?
Yeah. So anyway, I have a question. Like, so when you're making the files available to everybody, or rather more people, I would just like to request that that I don't know, give it to me because I work for Rebel News, and I think we could do a tremendous job covering this as much as anybody else, really. Yeah.
So Tim Cass is trying to come up, by the way, Elon, just to ask you a question. But in the meantime, I just want to go back, and I know the Persistence has a question as well. I'll give you the mic right after Persistence. But one question again, back to the advertisers, Elon. Not sure if you heard it before. Any progress there with the advertisers that stopped advertising on Twitter, which we all agree is just not right, and any other strategies to bring revenue outside of advertising? You're muted, Elon.
Yeah, so so Apple has fully resumed advertising, which is appreciated. Apple is the single biggest advertiser on Twitter, and historically and presently. So thanks Apple for fully resuming advertising. And I think we are starting to see a lot of other advertisers also resume their spending. I think the problem is that they would read all these stories in the media and then think that they were true, and they're not true. And then as it's becoming clear that the media stories about Twitter being some sort of like right-wing hellscape, which it absolutely isn't. And in fact, it is. There are far fewer bots, far fewer trolls, and it's actually, I think, way more fun. and interesting, and we're seeing that in the user minutes and in the daily average users. Then advertisers are like, oh, okay, I guess maybe it is safe to get back in the water, and so we are seeing advertisers resume advertising on Twitter. So that's a good sign. I wish it would be faster, but we are seeing them resume. The more concerning factor on the advertising front is just the entire industry-wide drop in advertising, which Twitter is not immune from. So even though advertisers do get back on, the advertising expenditures in general are dropping for all companies. And so it is imperative that Twitter have an alternate revenue source, hence the subscriber revenue, which is just very important for both of the survival and of Twitter, and to reduce its dependence on advertisers. So yeah, overall, I think I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. Yeah, so
I'll add one point of credit. Like I have no stance. I have nothing against the old executives at Twitter, etc. But very objectively speaking, what you've done in a month, and again, that's purely being objective. What you've done in a month is fucking insane. The amount of progress that you've had and where Twitter is at now in such a short period of time. So not that you need more credit because you're getting a lot here, but I just want to add to it as well. I'll give the mic to the Persistence, who's been waiting for a while, and then Spike. Go ahead, Persistence.
Well, thank you for making this a popular social media. My question is, do we have any information on advertisers threatening to pull money from Twitter if Twitter did not adhere to a policy? And additionally, do we have any information on congressmen or women who have threatened legislation should Twitter not adhere to a certain policy? And last, I was really intrigued by your comment on positivity and negativity in tweets, you saying that positive tweets would go further. And I just wanted to see what would constitute the measurement from Twitter that would make something positive or negative. Thank you.
You're muted, Elon. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sure. Well, the advertisers, I mean, for the most part, the advertisers are quite rational in that, if you, especially if you're advertising a family-friendly product, that you don't want to be sort of, like let's say you're advertising a Disney movie, you don't want to have like some super negative sort of hate speech, or to the and also a movie or whatever. And you also they don't want to have not safe for work content right next to ads for children toys and stuff like that. So that stuff is quite reasonable, and I agree with that. Advertisers have a right to have their advertising be next to non-advertising content that is consistent with their brand. So that really just means like what is not attempting to monetize with advertising content that advertisers are uncomfortable with. So I think in general it's been okay. I mean, I think there has been some overzealous action by activist groups that pressure the advertisers, that then in turn pressure Twitter. And we're trying to sort of, that I thought was somewhat unreasonable. But I think it's going to trend in a good direction going forward. But I'm not sure. But it looks like it's headed in a good direction. Like I said, advertisers are returning to Twitter. Apple's back at full ad spend, and I've had a number of conversations with the advertiser groups, and every time I've had those conversations, the advertisers have responded positively. And I've also just because they're like, I mean, they're basically they end up reading the sort of mainstream media, and it's like, you know, and then they end up with all the wrong impressions of what's going on. And I said, well, have you tried using Twitter? Do you see these things for yourself? And they're like, actually, it seems fine when we use Twitter. Like, yes, that's because it is fine. And so then, and I also tell them, like, look, as we try to grow Twitter's user base, if a new user comes on Twitter and then is immediately attacked by trolls and dumped on, they're going to want to leave. So, because who wants to go? It's like going into a party or something and everyone just starts yelling at you. You're going to want to leave that party. So, you know, Twitter does need to be a more welcoming environment for new users. And so the incentives are actually aligned. That if people come on and they see interesting, funny tweets, things that where they learn something new, or it's entertaining, it's funny, it's like that's the kind of thing that we should see more of, and that's consistent with what most advertisers want, I think, and what Twitter wants in order to grow the user base, and then just generally over time, it's like kind of, you know, people can be, I think, to some degree, choose what sort of experience they are. Like, just like you can choose a radio station. Like, you know, some people want to listen to sort of smooth jazz, easy listening, or they may want to go to, you know, pop music, or they want to go to heavy metal thrash. And, you know, to each their own. Or if this was, you know, do you want to have like full contact martial arts, or do you want to have, you know, light contact, or do you want to do yoga? You know, and you can decide which one of those, what kind of experience you want. That's going to be important in order to have Twitter appeal to a broad audience. Yeah, so that's the rough game plan.
Tom, I'll let you.
Elon,
You've got a question, Tom?
I just wanted to ask really quick. He had mentioned different color check marks for verification for different entities. Was that still going to be part of the new verification process?
Yeah. So again, like the goal is like to say, how do you convey to people using Twitter as quickly as possible and as clearly as possible what they're seeing. So there will be a gold check mark for commercial organizations, a gray check mark for government, and a blue check mark for verified individuals. And then there will also be an organizational affiliation logo. So like next to your check, if you, let's say, a verified user, if you are a professor at Stanford and Stanford is participating in identifying who is a professor, then there would be like a tiny Stanford logo that would appear next to your blue check mark. So then as you're scrolling, it's like you can see, oh, this is actually a Stanford professor, or this person actually does work at Coca-Cola, and there's the clarity there.
Will there be a process for this to apply for an organization for, you know, let's say you're a part of a small news organization and you want to apply for this status? Will it be available to the public, or is this something that's going to be very selective?
No, it will be available to the public. So it's sort of, so it's not going to be like an anointed set of companies. Now, there will be a strong policy against impersonation and deception. So if someone's attempting to deceive users, then their account will be suspended. So that's yeah.
I've got a question here. I'll give it to Tom, just by a pretty notable person that doesn't want to disclose their identity, but it's a simple question. By the way, anyone that has a question, you could DM me. The team is checking all the DMs. The question is plans for crypto Twitter payments, whether it's going to be like WeChat or whether you have plans at all.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, hell yeah, Dogecoin to the moon.
Doge to the moon. Yeah, I think we do want to have Twitter enable both regular payments and fiat currency, and make it easier to transact with crypto. Yeah.
Okay, I've got another question here from a big YouTuber as well. Elon, one of the first, so they're asking, they want to bring YouTube creators to Twitter. What's your plan with, what's your Twitter creator plan, if there is one?
Yeah, so, well, for video, we need to upgrade the Twitter system to be able to have longer video, and then enable creators to derive revenue from viewership, which is a combination of advertising and subscription. So these are obviously things that need to happen. Like I said, in order for these to happen, like you could have a wish list a mile long, but if the engine of engineering is not fixed, the wish list is long. So that's why I am focused on fixing Twitter engineering first and foremost. In the absence of that, you could have a wish. Whatever you wish for cannot be done because the engineering is not working.
Hey, I have a really great suggestion for you, Elon.
And right after Kim, I'll let Tom jump in right after you. Just Tom, sorry for delaying it so much. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
Yeah, you know how foreign media is labeled on Twitter often as like Russian-controlled, state-controlled media. Why don't we do the same thing in the US with all of these media organizations that are telling us go to war? You know, this is all great. Like, why don't we label them as well, US government state media?
No, I think that's a good idea. Because, like, you know, it's like SBF gave so much money to different media organizations that, and then they just write these puff pieces, and it's like, okay, we should be labeling that SBF affiliated media because it is. So, like, if you're going to write a puff piece about someone who gave you a ton of money, then the public should know that you maybe have a bias. So yeah, I mean, I think it should be if if something is taking direction from the states, then that information should be made clear to the readers. Like who really has editorial control should be clear. Because that's all part of like trying to give users of Twitter the most accurate and truthful understanding of what's going on, and be able to calibrate what they read and see or hear on Twitter to be able to calibrate the truthfulness as a function of where is it coming from, who is the author, who is controlling this from an editorial standpoint, and so then they can apply reasonable judgment in that case.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that would be a really good thing to level the playing field, because when you want to find out about what's going on in Ukraine and you get it from sources that are labeled in a certain way, and then the US news sources are not labeled at all, the problem with that is that people think this source is trustworthy and this source is not trustworthy. So if Twitter has labels like this, then they need to be applied fairly also against media that is clearly pro-war and clearly infiltrated by commentators from the intelligence community who are telling us all this bullshit about why we have to be at war.
I agree. I mean, this is the maximum truth is the truth still set you free. So, yep, I agree.
Tom, do you want to ask? I know you've been waiting for a while, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
I have to sign off soon, so maybe just a couple more questions, and then I gotta go back to work here.
I'll let Tom jump in because he's been waiting.
Quickly, Elon,
yeah,
you
just
are the timeline
just before
disruptor,
guys.
And we appreciate keep innovating and keep creating. Thank you.
And Elon, I'll shot as. Go ahead, Tom. I'll let you ask your question, Tom, and then I'll jump in. Go ahead, Tom.
I don't think Tom's here.
Yeah, so I'll jump in, Elon. My question to you, because
you
Tom's
can ask.
it's not working on his end. Well, it's actually a simple question. I'm going to shoot my shot. If I can get a DM on Twitter, so I have a line of communication, and then I can try to get you on, convince you to join more spaces. So it's not a question. It's just giving it a shot on my end. I appreciate you joining again.
This is Tom again.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead, man. I said my word. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, thank you. This is Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch, Elon. Appreciate your public service and your transparency efforts here. My concern is, as the head of a watchdog group, is the government corruption in response, not only to what you potentially may uncover, but in response to what you're doing. And when you have the President of the United States from the podium celebrate his election victory by calling for a national security review of your activities, you have senators, focusing on you. You have other government agencies investigating you and your other businesses. Are you concerned, A, about the retaliation, and B, are you seeing evidence of it already?
Hey, you're muted, Elon.
Well, government is slow to act. So this is the thing about it that's important to appreciate about anything government related is that they're not nimble; they are slow. So I think the actions that we'll see, and I think there probably will be some actions, will happen, but they'll happen slowly. And it's only been a month so far, but I would expect some. There's probably at least a few nefarious things that are in the works right now. I'd say it would be naive to assume that there are no nefarious things. And so I guess but I will just expose them on Twitter and see what happens.
Well, the most important thing, you don't have any suicidal thoughts, do you, Elon?
I do not have any suicidal thoughts. If I committed suicide, it's not real.
Bro, that was dark.
That was a good one.
Clay, I know Elon has to jump off, so maybe one more question or one or two. Clay, and then Ian, I'll let you end it, Ian, because you've done a great job asking questions earlier. Clay, go ahead.
Yeah, Elon, this is Clay Travis with Outkick Fox News and radio show with Clay and Buck. You said earlier, and I think it's so important, that you were thinking about just letting everybody know when you get a governmental request to censor someone or take down tweets. What kind of process is in play there, and to what extent can that happen? Because I think you're right. The sunlight of the government being embarrassed when they're going after James Woods, for instance, would drastically reduce any attempts at censorship. What's the update there? What kind of time frame? And do you think that's able to be implemented?
You're muted, Elon.
I mean, as I said earlier, like Twitter will do whatever it is allowed to do within the boundaries of the law to be as transparent and open as possible. And even if we currently are, and I don't know this to be the case, but if